All right, it's a clip of the week segment. We're starting off with Dan from the internet and Rayyvana on Power Report. They were discussing what I think is going to be the unifying issue, by which I mean after we fully defeat the right wing devils that are coming for democracy, after they have learned that we are many and we are mighty, and they want to come back to the grown up world and actually talk about politics seriously and actually fix the United States. The uniting issue will be corruption, money in politics, rule by oligarch. We all hate that. We all despise that here. All of us who are not the oligarchs despise it. But only progressives are talking about it in terms of real numbers. And that is because only progressives are serious about actually doing something about it. Here's a couple of great progressives, Dan from the internet and Rayyvana.
So what Unusual Rails did was they made a chart comparing how these different legislators and lawmakers performed compared to SPY, which is an index that matches the stock performance of the stock market. And so, given that context, Brian Higgins, and so it's color coded by a political party. Go ahead.
For the record, Dan is laughing about that because Brian Higgins is a person whose campaign he donated to. He said earlier in the stream he was saying, "I donated to just one campaign, and this is what happened." A dear family member had a similar experience with Richard Nixon. It's easy to seem to say like, "Oh, Nixon was so bad." Now, but of course, going into the various elections he stole, they didn't have all the information. All they had was a candidate that said they were going to fix the environment, amongst other things. It happens. Don't feel too bad, Dan from the internet. That said, I commend you for pulling up the numbers. Here's a guy, Brian Higgins, who is very unlikely to try to get money out of politics because he's making out like a bandit.
I was just going to say, holy shit.
So Brian Higgins performed 238.9% better than the SPY, so like better than the stock market essentially. And so for folks who don't understand percentages, essentially 100% is doubling, so 200% is tripling. So Brian performed 3 times better than the stock market.
For context, there are people who have made television careers in giving stock advice by simply performing a little bit better than the SPY. By having their investments in one particular year come out like 15% better. Brian Higgins, 238% better. If you are wondering why this happens, I think they explain it, but it comes down to the fact that when you are in charge of government contracts, as in, let's say, I know the government is going to pass legislation that will fund repairs across federal highways this year, and they're going to give it to X company. You can then turn around and invest in X company because you know they're about to get a massive influx of money. In fact, you can go one step further. If you already invested in a, let's say, cement selling company or laying company, whatever. I'm using very broad terms or a broad example here. You already have an investment in there, but you get to choose which company is going to be picked to do this big national multi-billion-dollar A highway repair? Well, of course, you pick the one you're invested in, and then you watch your own bank account swell. The answer to this is to make it illegal for our representatives to trade stocks. It's that simple. A full ban on stock trading if you decide that you want to be a representative of the public. No more private thieving of wealth.
What committee is he on? I just need to Google that because I'm just curious. Like, is there anything on here that might make this sort of interesting? Oh, he's on the House Ways and Means Committee, so they handle the budget and the taxes. Oh, he's also on the House Committee of the Budget, so that's the government's budget. So, good thing he wouldn't have any advanced information on the budgets of the government or companies that have to, work with the government or contract with the government, or any news that might affect the stock prices of any such companies, because that would just be wrong.
That's fucking awesome. I love. Okay, it is so funny though because positions like banning stock trading from members of Congress from trading stocks, you'll find weird bedfellows. Like AOC will be introducing a piece of legislation with Matt Gaetz to prevent this type of unfair windfalls from occurring. This is nuts, though. I mean, 200.
Great point from Rayyvana. I want to jump in on that. On this show, we've talked about frequently the devils we're willing to work with and why. And, any of them, frankly. I'll work with Donald Trump to get his cohorts, sure. And then I'll turn around and I'll work with his cohorts to get him. I'll shake hands with a resurrected Genghis Khan, if it means that I can get rid of the worst elements of the U.S. government. I'm so glad that Rayyvana pointed that out. Yeah, AOC happily worked with Gaetz because they are in agreement here. For clarity, Gaetz is here because he knows he will never be a darling of the donor class. He knows he can't swim in those waters. He's too gross for them. He's too much of an embarrassment. He's too nouveau riche for them. There's a big problem with that. The old veau riche, old money versus new, old power versus new. There's a lot of butting of heads because the new people coming to power don't take the culture with them of the old ways. F them both, I say, and AOC, yeah, keep working with Gaetz on this. Work with whoever you want. If they are, I don't care what their reputation is. I care about what their actions will be. If you can get a vote to ban stock trading in Congress, you should absolutely take it.
138.9%. You weren't even trying to pretend you weren't cheating the stock market.
True.
You didn't care how bad this would make you look.
True.
It's
terrible. Entry number 1 for clip of the week, Power Report talking about congressional stock trading, specifically Brian Higgins with his outperforming the SPY by 238%. Wow. He's making Nancy Pelosi blush there, and a great point by Rayyvana. He's not even. I'm sure it doesn't even occur to him to try to slow his roll a little bit, to do it subtly, because they just understand there's an oligarchic class. In this country, leadership also comes with immunity from the law, limited, but still immunity from the law as long as you don't embarrass everybody. And, of course, instant riches. We have systems built into the government for thieving from all of us. Our leaders have an unfair advantage in the stock market, and we have allowed ourselves to be conned into pretending like that's okay. But the good news is, and I do really want to stress this. The good news is, it is not a partisan issue to hate that. It is not a partisan issue to want to get rid of that. So we should make it a thing that we talk about at the dinner table, at the lunch table at work, wherever your slave quarters are located. We should discuss breaking our chains by defunding the oligarchs.